Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Premier League panel show. Match week 4 is in the books. It's getting more and more interesting. It feels like there's more and more that we can talk about now, getting a better picture of things. We have our last week's crew, so we'll be able to kind of like go back on some of the things we thought was going to happen and didn't happen. I can give Shay some shit, and then, we can go about it that way. So, let's start with our usual. We have Alan with Arsenal, Jake with Tottenham, and Shay with Villa. Let's go around real quick, and I think we're all going to be on the same page with this. But getting some really good feedback from somebody's microphone, but I don't know what's there. Okay, let's go. Let's start with Shay. Biggest shocker of the week for you from match week 4.
Um, Probably Holland getting his hat trick really quick again. I think here he goes again, dominating like always. And then honestly, Brighton showing out against Newcastle. So who would have thought? After last week they got beat by West Ham 1-3, and then they come back and do it to them. But obviously, us losing, it is what it is. I wasn't confident last week when we talked about that match anyway. So. And then another center back going down. This is still a tradition over here. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I thought it was odd or semi ironic in a way where we kind of talked about Pau Torres and that you could really see him struggle with the press and stuff. But we'll definitely talk a lot about that. Alan, give me one that you were like, what the hell happened there?
Brighton just handling Newcastle. 3-1 against them is just kind of shocking to me. I thought it'd be closer. I thought Newcastle was going to win, but I guess this is holding true to my prediction of Brighton being the dark horses to be in the Champions League next year. So here we go.
Man, Chelsea must be so bad that everybody's taking it normal now. I thought we were.
Oh yeah, no, that was going to happen.
Chelsea bandwagon here, but everybody went a different direction. Jake, what do you have?
I mean, I can go with Chelsea. That was just a shocking display. So, I mean, it is becoming the new norm. So at some point, it has to be not a surprise for us. But I'll give them in match week 4. I can still make it a surprise that they lost 1-0 to that this week. So,
yeah, I mean, Newcastle, I guess since we kind of like you guys mentioned it already, let's touch up on that. I mean, obviously after the Liverpool game, the way they lost that game, City, I don't think there is any shame in losing City, especially the way they did. It was, it was like they kept it close and everything like that. No shame in that. I think losing at home when you're up by 1 and up by a guy is obviously devastating. And then you also see, I mean, a horrible week for Newcastle altogether, Shay. Then you see their Champions League draw. Yeah. Do you think this kind of, I think when we entered the season, we saw them as they made it the Champions League next year. It was one of the teams that would make the next step. Do you think with what has happened so far, despite having the toughest schedule probably out of all the teams in the league, having seen what has happened so far and then seeing that Champions League draw, does that kind of give you a concept that they might not be sticking on top for long?
Yeah, I mean, they're in the group of death. There's no hiding it. They did not get the good draw on that. I think that's going to be a very tough couple games for them. So I think that's just going to take a lot of it out of them. And like you said, with their league schedule also being tough, they're in a little predicament. And like we said last week, he is a great coach, but this is going to be his true test to see how he can make them or take them to that next step. And like I said, Brighton being that good, like they have this chance to jump them. So I think Newcastle will have a long season ahead for them.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like every single game in that group, Jake, is going to be like just going to beat them up. Home, away, doesn't matter. And here's another thing, when you make the Champions League after so many years, I mean, I don't know if you guys felt the same way, for example, like, when Spurs was making the run, like when we met in the final and everything, that, so much goes into that. The Champions League midweek and stuff like that. It's almost like a little hangover every single weekend afterwards.
Sure, it definitely takes its toll in the league when you're putting all your resources into those midweek Champions League games. And it's like West Ham last season. You have to prioritize one or the other. And obviously West Ham focused on the Conference League and ended up winning it. So, it's up to whatever Newcastle think is a priority. And in my opinion, that is Champions League. Well, it was before the draw. It might be tough now. But, when you've been out of Europe for so long, you want to put all of your resources towards that goal and just hope that you can get the league results. But we're seeing so far before Champions League has even started that they can't get the league results. So it's a toss-up right now.
And it's not like they can make that choice, right, Alan? Like, when you make it the Champions League after so long, you can't be like, ugh, I'm not going to win this. Might as well focus on the league and come back here next year, because the fans are going to expect. I mean, not only is a hangover for the team at times, I think, the fans get all geared up for this game. I mean, I know about you guys. There are some Liverpool games I'm like exhausted. I feel like I played afterwards. So, I mean, when the fans get geared up for so much for a game, it's kind of hard even for the fans to rebuild that energy for the weekend. Where do you think Newcastle goes from here?
I mean, they have to make a choice whether they care more about the Premier League and staying on top in the top four, or if they're going to go ahead and challenge in the toughest group in the Champions League. I mean, if we look back to 2016, 2017, after Leicester had won the league, they finished in 12th. Of course, they sold off a bunch of players after winning the league, but they finished in the semifinals of the Champions League that season. So they obviously made a priority and choice that year. I think Newcastle might have to be forced to do one or the other. They won't be able to compete in either or. So we'll see what happens. Or both, should I say.
Okay, so let's start with the game of the week, and then we'll come to probably Liverpool Arsenal afterwards a little bit. I mean, Liverpool Villa afterwards a little bit. But Arsenal United, I mean, it's always a fun time to watch United lose. But then when that's combined with Lego Head celebrating, that kind of like leaves me really torn. I don't know which way to go. Shay, what is your takeaway from that game? I don't know if you were able to watch it in full or not, or the highlights or whatever, but what do you think? What do you say in terms of implications?
Yeah, I was definitely able to catch the end. I mean, like you said, I saw the first half. They scored 2 goals back to back. I mean, as soon as I saw that, I thought it was going to be a absolute shootout. You come towards the end, you get your last minute VAR call, and of course, here comes United bitching like they always do. They can get their way. For Arsenal to come in and just score the 2 dagger goals at the end was honestly mind blowing to me. Like, I was not expecting that. I thought they showed huge strides in Arteta and Arsenal, just saying like, hey, we are legit, and we are going to be able to finish games off when everybody thinks we're going to be down and out. And it's just, again, shambles for United. I don't remember who their 2 back pair were, but I don't think it was very good. And I know that's not their starters, so.
Oh, I mean, it was a Leicester comeback. It was Maguire and Evans. I mean, the biggest. It couldn't get any funnier. Honestly, it was like an NBA game anyway. Like, you could have just tuned in for the last 15 minutes, and you would have caught all the excitement. So it was like the last 2 minutes of like an NBA game. Jake, what is your takeaway from that? I'm afraid to come to Alan because God knows what he's going to run away with. But as a Spurs fan looking at that, does it say anything about either team?
I mean, yes and no. It's tough when there's a VAR controversy, as Ten Hag wants us to believe there was, to say whether or not it's an indicative result. But I like that Arsenal, after the emotional roller coaster of thinking that they went down 2-1 late, then coming back and scoring 2 late goals and sealing the deal. So that's a good sign. United, I don't want to say shambles yet, but Ten Hag came out after the match with all those, accusations, and it's like, you really shouldn't be saying all that, like, to the media. And then Sancho came in and said, "Hold my beer. I'm gonna do you one better." and then made even more of a fool of United after that. So.
Yeah, I mean, it just keeps betting, and then this Anthony news obviously comes up with the national team and stuff like that, and it's just like a pile on of back to back to back. So I guess we have to come to you, Alan, on this game. What do you take away from it? Do you leave that game saying like, that's it, baby, we're going to the title, or do you say, man, we struggled with scoring against Maguire and Evans?
The 2 goals we scored were against Maguire and Evans at the latest.
Or okay, let me rephrase that. Do you say we can only score against Maguire and Evans?
No, because we scored immediately right back after we answered immediately to their first goal, and that's just to me that was indicative of the team that we saw last year. One that is not going to be down and out, but one that is going to be if they are down early, they're going to fight and they're going to keep on going for the win. They're not just going to go for a draw. The calls that were made, like the offsides, it was a clear and obvious offsides to me. I knew it as soon as it happened. I knew that he was offside live. In my view, that's. I mean, you can chuckle and laugh all you want, but that's what I saw.
Dude, it was like a quarter of an inch. I mean, when I saw it, I like my brother's a United fan, so when he was celebrating, I was like, was he on or was he off? Because he could have been slightly off, but hey, man, you do you.
No, the United fans around me were cheering, and I just looked at them like, it's not a goal, man. It's not a goal, and sure enough, it wasn't. I mean, I kept my cool there. And then the Rice goal, they wanted to say that Gabriel fouled. I forget who exactly that Ten Hag is saying that he fouled, but I think both players were actually in my opinion, Gabriel looked fouled there. So it could have been, if Rice had missed, you could have argued that it would have been an Arsenal penalty. So, and then of course the classy goal by Gabriel Jesus. It was amazing. It was just pure class. Just making. I think Diogo Dallo is still sliding all the way to Brazil right now, or Portugal, should I say? So,
okay, let's take these Arsenal glasses off. Throw them away. Shay, what do you make out of those decisions? Like, which way do you think? I mean, I was personally shocked that as soft as the penalty was, that VAR overturned the penalty where they kind of sandwich Havertz, even though there's not a lot of contact. I feel like they are impeding him. And this is when I felt like we punish players that are kind of trying, because if it's Sterling over there, he's collapsing like wall, and then he's earning the penalty. If it's Kane over there, no offense, Jake, but he's falling there, or he is making the contact. Like smart forward would make the contact, not lift his leg, so there is no contact. I was actually shocked it was overturned, but it is United, so you kind of we're like, okay, it's just another day in the Premier League. What did you make of all the other decisions, like the penalty where somehow Alan thinks Gabriel was fouled? I think that could have gone. It would be soft. I'll be honest. I didn't see it.
It's like how we discussed last week. These refs, I think they're all absolutely rattled right now. So all these decisions are just kind of coming at a should we do it, should we not kind of do it? And I know if I'm gonna make it, we're gonna have to push back regardless. I will say for that offside, I saw it on Twitter a couple times. The fact that he was able to pull that move off in that split second to me is absolutely absurd. Like, that amount of decision making to just like, oh, hey, I'm going to step back for 2 seconds is crazy because they're running at full speed.
That was a Michael Jackson lean.
Yeah, the little Michael Jackson lean. Like, to do it that quickly was absurd. So, that's what I got the technology for. Like you said, everybody was cheering for it, and you actually see it. He was off. I mean, we bitch about VAR, but, it works when it needs to work, and it's there for that reason because truly to catch that at real time would have been wild. But for the penalties, it is what it is. United gets away with a bunch, so to hell with them. They've done it to Villa so many times. Bruno Fernandes will literally step on our players and trip himself and get penalties. So, I don't have any tears for them.
No, it is really, really hard to feel bad for United. So I don't think there'll be any of that. But Jake, what did you make of any of the calls? And meanwhile, since we're talking calls, let's touch up on the City's second goal. I was hoping Alex was here to just yell and scream about it, but how that was not off. When that wasn't called offside with VAR, I was like, maybe I just don't know this game anymore. Like, all my life I watched this game. I guess maybe I don't know this game anymore. But Jake, what did you make of the ones? Let's start with the Arsenal game first, the calls over there.
Sure. I think, VAR is there for a reason, and it's hard to argue with the offsides calls that are just drawing the lines. We can moan about it all we want, but if they draw the lines and they're off, then they're off. And I agree with that one. For the Arsenal penalty that got called back, I agree with that one as well. I think who was it, Wan-Bissaka, was pulling his leg back to not impede, and then the contact was accidentally initiated by Havertz's trailing leg. So you can say that he was impeding by just being in the area, but it's like, at what point are you just not going to defend anymore because you're too worried that you're going to accidentally touch someone that's, running near you? So I think that it was a good precedent for the rest of the season for calls like that. But the Manchester City call, there's no excuse for that one. That was, there've been some bad ones already in the first 4 weeks, but that probably has been the worst one so far.
Yeah, it was just mind-boggling. Like, I'm like, oh, there's no way. Like, I didn't even doubt it. And I was like, wait, what? And it's just, that's when I was like, I guess I just don't know this game anymore. So I didn't watch second half. Because why watch something I'm not understanding? Alan, so the 10 out of 12, we're going to go back to the standings later on, but before we kind of move away from this game, does this make that Fulham game almost hurt more in a way, knowing you guys could have been perfect along with City if it wasn't for, against a 10-man team and stuff?
It does. Yeah, we should have put away Fulham. I think Fulham also could have been a wake-up call to this team as far as the way that they were performing even in the Palace match before that was just very indicative of how poorly they can play. And so they showed up to Manchester United from the get-go ready to play and ready to come out and compete and win. So, I felt throughout the entirety of the game, and this might be just because Ten Hag plays, negative football and wants to create the counterattack chance, but Arsenal just dominated in possession and in tackles and everything, in my opinion. So
yeah, Ten Hag came in as this Ajax, he's gonna be, and then it's gonna be like one of those Scooby-Doo episodes where it's like the mask is gonna come off and it's gonna be like, it was Mourinho all along. It's like parking the bus back there playing counterattack. It was kind of odd, and I think so. Let's we'll probably go back to United anyway, but Ten Hag's job, Jake, you were mentioning earlier with all the the compounding things happening, at risk, or he has plenty of time still?
No, I think he's got some time, unless it really plummets 4 or 5 losses on the bounce. But I think he has some time to turn it around. I think his first obstacle is to figure out what to do with Sancho. You paid 100 million for this player, and he has not lived up to the potential. And now he's speaking out, saying pretty much that you lied when he said that he did not include him in the squad because of his performance and training. So you got to clean house a little bit. Obviously you can't sell him, but you got to figure out what's going on with him and then focus on the results. And you have the international break to kind of deal with that and hopefully turn something around to get some points coming out of it. But I don't know. I think he has some time. I know United are usually pretty quick to dismiss their managers, but I think with Ten Hag, they kind of see that he can build something if he goes about it the right way, and that's just going to be something that he needs to figure out on his own.
Yeah, you can look at probably United's season a couple of different ways, Shay. I think if you just look at the results, you could say the games they lost is away at Spurs, away at Arsenal, no shame in that. But you can also say the games they won, they had to come back from 2-0 against Forest, and Vieira had to ignore an assault by Onana and 2 players to get the 3 points on that one. So which way do you look at it, or does the mess behind the scenes make it look a lot worse than maybe it actually is?
It's a little bit of both. I agree with Drake too. I think he's fine in a sense, and even what Brian just commented on there too. There's no one out there for that job. I just don't think anybody wants this job anymore now. It is so toxic. And Jose said it perfectly when he did it. That was his greatest achievement was getting them to second place, because he said it. That whole team needs to be gutted, but nobody wants to leave. Look how hard it was to get rid of Harry Maguire. That man is stubborn as hell. Doesn't want to play anywhere else. So they can't get rid of these players. I think the whole team is just in absolute chaos. Like I said, you got the behind the scenes, you got the Greenwood, now you got Anthony stuff. You got Sancho, who's really not doing anything wrong. Like on that end, we don't know what his whole issue is. He maybe has a little bit of, disciplinary issues of just not wanting to show up during practice. But, we never know. He did force Cristiano Ronaldo out, and I don't truly believe he didn't give, any effort in training. Like Cristiano is that competitive. Like the man's 38 and he's still out here doing this stuff. I think it's just Ten Hag cannot truly handle the personalities. He wants to be the head man in charge, which again, you're the manager, but trying to manage all these individual personalities is where they have been struggling for all these years. And there's not a true leader on that team to tell them, hey, shut the hell up. Let's listen to the coach and, put our feet down and do something. They haven't been able to do it. I don't see them doing it in a long time. So, and I will say, I saw one of the best tweets about it. People complaining about, them not spending money. They have spent over $1 billion. They always complain that the Glazers don't spend. I just think they have a terrible transfer policy and they just go buy really bad purchases, and it has not worked out for them.
And they give people ridiculous wages, and that's why nobody wants to leave. I mean, I guess we've done the same thing, like with Ox. I mean, he was not going to go to Crystal Palace or whatever because he's like, you know what, I'll just chill in the physio room over here and collect the wages that you guys guaranteed in the contract. And I can see why a player would want that. It's your fault for giving that contract in the first place. I think the issue, Alan, is, a lot of money is spent, like Shay is saying, and I can understand the whole. I honestly don't think he ever wanted Ronaldo. That was kind of like forced on him. And that's, I think, where it's like Glazers do some stuff. Some decisions are made without really the game in mind. It's like more marketing and other things in mind. Sancho is not one of his guys that he brought in. But I feel like part of his problem has been the people he has brought in for some big money have not really been like, see, he knows what he's doing, like in terms of the guys he's bringing. I mean, Anthony... we'll probably talk about him later on, but to me, he's like a one-trick pony. He does the same stuff every time. I mean, those wingers are dime a dozen. He's not a bad player, but he's definitely not worth that amount. Mason Mount, obviously, with that huge price tag, has not performed well. Onana is great at knocking down people in the box, but I don't think he has been a good goalie overall. I saw some stats in terms of he's a great passer, but I don't know if he's a good goalie. So maybe he can play center back. He has the size in sort of Evans or something like that. You have Evans starting as your center back, who they kind of eased into signing. He was like, oh, it's just an old guy practicing with us to get back in shape. And then before you know it, they're trotting him out onto the field. Is like what the transfers, is it Ten Hag's fault? Is it really the Glazers, as most United fans say? Or Glazers have become the scapegoat that they just keep pounding?
I think the Glazers have become the scapegoat only because of all the failures that they've had for managers be those managers. I mean, truth be told, maybe Mourinho is definitely their best manager. He did say that the greatest job he's ever done as a coach is bring United to third place or second place or whatever it was. And then after that, like they haven't had really good managers. I think Ten Hag is a decent manager. He's just trying to plug and play a bunch of Ajax players that he had into a United system that's just not going to function for these players. And I think the issue with Ten Hag at the end of the day is he can't handle personalities. He also struggles with being in a bigger club and a bigger team. Ajax was a small club, honestly. I mean, big club as far as like the Netherlands is concerned, and they have a really good and talented youth program going on there at all times. But United is full of personalities, full of veterans, full of players that are here to play, and I don't think he can handle that. I think Ten Hag might have to leave. As far as who could replace him, I mean, if Simeone finally decides to leave La Liga and Atletico Madrid, I could see that as someone that could take over United. But other than that, I don't see anyone else.
Oh, that'd be a great freaking matchup too. And okay, it's like Sean Douche at Everton. It would be like a great marriage of an annoying manager and an annoying team at the same time. So we'll get back to United's. Because like I say, I mean, there are like so many problems. We'll talk about, like the Greenwood news came out again this weekend. We've talked about it before, so I'm going to kind of get your guys' take on that too. But let's go to this Villa game real quick. Shay, is it a result of an early goal? Is it more of a team that doesn't travel well, or just the quality difference overall that causes that result?
I would say a mixture of everything. Even Emery came out and said it too. He tried to experiment a little bit, that was not the game to experiment with. Why break something that doesn't work? He's got enough experience and watched enough tape. He shouldn't have done that. So I think he did something he shouldn't have done. Again, losing another center back early in the match, they just got rattled again. I think it hurts. Definitely hurt Pau Torres. I think my connection went away. Oh, we're back.
Oh, you're still here.
Definitely hurt Pau Torres again because he wasn't very perfect. Yeah, but Pau Torres, he got caught out a lot. I know, I praised him last week, and he's still going to get better. This is his third match starting, so once he figures it out and settles down, it'll be better. But to lose another defender, now that I know we bought Lindley, or not bought Lindley, have Lindley as our backup. We'll see how he does. I did find it hilarious. He brings in Leon Bailey when that happened, and he got subbed out like almost towards the end of the game. So I know that caused a lot of issues with him. From a lot of Villa fans I saw, they said he just walked down the tunnel pouting. And, for me, Leon is not the best player. The man is very wishy-washy. So I think the break is definitely needed for us because, like you said, we have so many injuries that happen so early. And half our players didn't get picked up for international. I think that was a blessing in disguise. We'll see what Jacob Ramsey comes out and Moreno. And then hopefully they have the 2 weeks of rest. But it is what it is. I was very surprised with y'all center back pairing, but like you said, the front of Liverpool is still very, very good. You have a lot of talent on that team.
Yeah, it was just odd that I was expecting a very, very difficult game, and that's probably like one of the easiest wins I've seen this team have. Especially like going in with that center back pairing, we were kind of like worried about this whole thing, and I know I was, and most Liverpool fans were, and to kind of like cruise through it felt odd. It's something we're definitely not used to as Liverpool fans, especially recently. Jake, you look at that, do you say, damn, this Liverpool team is for real this season, or do you say Villa is not as good as maybe we thought?
Little column A, little column B, in my opinion. I think Liverpool are a good side. They have all the players there. It just was maybe a little bit of chemistry that was missing in that midfield. That's pretty much brand new. So I think that they're gonna get into form, are coming into form, and will be a dangerous side like we're used to seeing. So I think they'll continue to be good. Villa, I don't know. I can't get my head around Villa. I don't know if they're a good team or not. So obviously this week it did not look like it at all. But they had other showings where they looked very potent in attack. So I think it's too early to tell for Villa, but for Liverpool, I think they will continue to ride this wave and be a very solid side still.
Yeah, I almost feel like the international break came at a bad time. Normally, you're like, okay, good, let's get a breather. But I feel like this team is slowly. It's not like like Villa not having a lot of your guys go there. It's good opportunity to kind of like work together and get things worked in. But Liverpool, when everybody's going all over the place, it's kind of like hard to add to chemistry on a week where everybody's gone. Alan, do you look at Liverpool and say, oh shit, now we got to deal with these guys too, along with City?
To be honest with you, I think Liverpool has always been a threat. Last year, they became a threat towards the end of the season. They're going to be a threat this year as well. They always have been in my eyes. It's not for me to be like I'm worried about it. I think
you should be, Alan. You should be.
I'm not. I think we'll get our first win at Anfield for the first time forever this year.
The good news for you is Bobby is not there anymore.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That automatically eliminates like a hat trick in that game. So.
But going back to the game, honestly, with Villa, it's. I told my friend this: you live by the Emery, you die by the Emery. And they decided to experiment in that game, and it didn't work out to fruition. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Villa. I'm not counting them out completely as far as like competing for European places, but I think it's going to be tougher this year. I think Emery is going to start to overcoach, and he's going to start to be too much of a tactician, and it could be a problem.
Going back to the games, Shay, let's talk a little bit about your boys. 5-2 against Burnley. I really feel like, I mean, we were talking about it right before we went on air. Burnley is going to have to figure out that, hey, this wide open crap does not really work well all the time, especially against a team like Spurs. I know, when we first started doing the show, you were like, hey, low expectations. You were shocked even after the first 2 weeks of it unfolded. Is it like a even more optimistic look now, or is it still cautious and say this is eventually going to kind of like taper down?
Definitely cautiously optimistic still, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun to watch. So much different than the previous 2 seasons, and I mentioned this before. That's pretty much all we can ask for at the moment. It's just having an enjoyable game, and I think it showed a lot of character going to Burnley and going down a goal very early. I was very worried that this was going to be like the first game where the new system was just not going to work and someone had figured it out, and that is going to be a long, long road back. But we showed a lot of character, and we looked very much like Burnley was still a championship side. So I think for Burnley, looking at it, the reason why they stayed in the Premier League for as long as they did is because Dyche had them playing that boring, safe football that got them points when they needed it. So I liked what Company was doing with them in the championship. I thought they were a very fun team, but they didn't, bolster the squad with Premier League quality players enough to be playing that style in the Premier League. So I think that they kind of have to adjust a little bit. And I think Company, having played under Pep and has been a good manager so far, I think he has the ability to make some adjustments and, maybe come out of the relegation battle victorious and land in that, 17th spot.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. It feels like there's a huge gap. So we're going to look at the standings now, and I know we kind of did this on our regular Premier League show, so I want to kind of like do this over here and ask you guys first. So, Alan, let's start with you on this one. You see the top 10 over here, and I don't know if you noticed that Liverpool is on top of Arsenal there, but that's just for me pointing it out to you. But out of that top 10, if we let's do an early knee-jerk episode, if you will. Which one of those teams do you think are going to bounce out of that top 10?
Nottingham Forest right there. Crystal Palace as well. I don't think that United and Chelsea aren't 11 and 12. I think they're 8th and 9th, but I think Crystal Palace is punching above their weight, and I think the same thing as far as Nottingham Forest. I don't think they'll be in relegation battles per se, but I think they'll definitely be mid-table, like 13, 14th, where like Fulham and Newcastle are at.
Honestly, the way the bottom of the table is going, as long as you have like 9-10 points, you're pretty safe going forward.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there's a lot of teams that are like really in the gutter over there. Jake, how about you? I mean, if you go from this top 10 over here, how many teams are you bumping down? And what is the big? I mean, apart from your boys, is that the biggest surprise that you see over here? And you're like, never thought we'd be up there, or?
No, I would have to say West Ham being up there. I didn't think, at least for most of the transfer window, they did a lot to make their team better. And it looked like it was going to be another poor season in the league. But, they had some reinforcements there at the end. You got the midfielders in that they needed. And it's working out so far. So I don't think that they continue that, though, especially with European games coming up, similar to how we talked about with Newcastle, where you're going to have to, decide what you're going for this season. And I think it might be too much for them, especially with, the depth isn't really there. So I think West Ham, and the comment there, Forest, obviously, I think that's the easy pick from those 10. I think West Ham, Forest, and then Crystal Palace are the ones that are going to be out of the top 10 by January.
Okay. Well, yeah, I didn't like West Ham is actually the whole European thing. Yeah, that's a good shout, I think, because of that. Shay, how about you? Are you pessimistic that your boys are gonna stick up there, or who are you kicking out of this top 10?
Yeah, I mean, I can see us floating around that 10 to 14 spot just for the time being, until everybody comes back healthy, and then I think they'll make that push again like they did last season. But definitely with Jake, West Ham, we talked about it that last show. Like, I was surprised they were able to bring in that many quality players, and they're able to be fourth right now, which is crazy. And then with them playing in Europa League, again, Newcastle, a lot of matches, new team. Do they have the depth, the quality of depth to do it? Same with Palace. I think, everybody was kind of teetering on them once they fired Vieira, new coach in. They didn't really bring in any new players. And I know Alassi, was it Alassi? Still injured. He's like one of their key guys are gone. Forest, I'm going to go with them as well. I think they just lost Brennan Johnson, which is their main threat now that he's at Spurs. So it's going to be a long season for them. I think Brentford will probably surprise a few people once Tony does come back. I think they'll be in that, between the 6, 7, 8, which is going to be a fight between, like I said, Brighton, Villa, and then obviously I know Chelsea and United are they'll somehow find a way to sneak back up there. So it's early days. It's fun to give them shit, but they'll be back.
I mean, hey, you never know. We almost like assume, right? You would think
Yeah.
that they would stumble onto points, but I mean, that was the thing. When I looked at that, I was actually with Alan, like Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest. I don't think in the long run that will be there. I definitely, understand the West Ham shout, but then you come to the bottom of the table, and that's why I kind of wanted to run this by you guys as well, because you're like, okay, well, are only 2 teams seeing 11, 12, and 14 over there. Jake, let's start with you. Are you pushing all 3 of those to the top 10? Or if one of them stays back down here, who does?
Yeah, I think, most likely all 3 go back up for those three teams in top 10 that I mentioned. So I think that kind of works out where they're regress to the mean sort of thing, where the bigger teams, if you will, do come back to the top 10. I think if anyone were to stay, I think it's Chelsea. They just they showed in this past match what we saw pretty much all of last season, is that they can't score even with all their great players. So I think that's definitely going to be an issue. I don't think United or Newcastle will stay down there long. I think that they had a relatively tough first few games. And that's the reason why they're down there. But yeah, I think it's West Ham, Palace, and Forest, and swap them with those 3.
So do you think Newcastle, we talked earlier about their Champions League group and stuff like that. Do you think that they're that much better than West Ham that it will affect them less than West Ham then, I assume?
Depth-wise, I think that they have far more depth than West Ham, and that's going to be a huge thing where you can take players off in either the Premier League or the Champions League at like 60 minutes and kind of rest them a little bit for their next match. Also, with them being in the group of death, I think they're out in the group stage. So I think that shortens their European campaign. They play less games overall.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very doable, right? Like they don't even make the 3rd spot down to the Europa and stuff like that. And that's, it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't when that happens. It's because you become the Thursday games that, obviously Liverpool is going to have. But if you talk about depth, that affects you, I think, even worse when you do the Thursday games. Alan, you kicked 2 out, so you only get to pick 2 up.
That's fine. I did overlook West Ham, to be honest, but all right, I'll pick 3 to go up.
I did the same thing, so yeah, no shame in that. So I did the same thing in our Premier League show.
I did say United and Chelsea, but Chelsea's staying down there. I'm sorry. Newcastle, if Newcastle can have like a shorter European season, or if they end up in Europa League, that choice to either battle for the top European spots in the Premier League might be made clear for them. I know earlier I said that they would have to make a choice between the Champions League and the Premier League, but if they're out of the Champions League, just don't even bother the Europa League.
Yeah, for Newcastle, it's kind of tricky. Like I say, they did City, us, and then obviously like Brighton, that's not an easy game either. So they've had a tough like schedule, and they had Villa the first week. It's not like that was an easy game either. I know
Mhm.
the score is deceiving, I think, for that game because it kind of like fell apart at the end. It wasn't as easy as like what was I think the final was 5-1 or something like that, right, Shay?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
it didn't like feel like a 5-1 game watching it. I mean, Newcastle was better, but not that much better. Shay, who are you saving out of this bottom trap? And who are you and then on the reverse round, let's start this as well. Who are you sending all the way down from this bottom 10?
Oh yeah, for sure. I know it's a theme, but like I said, Newcastle, I really do think they should just not go full out for that Champions League. 'Cause like I said, I just looked at their schedule. You got Milan as their first matchup. Pulisic has been doing really well for them. But then when they come back to the league, they're playing Sheffield. They do have to play Burnley and then West Ham. So I think that's some easier games for them. So I think they'll come back up to that top 10. Chelsea, until they figure out their scoring woes, they're going to stay there because nobody can score on that team. So I'll see United going up. Now for going down, I'm still going with what it's looking like right now. I think whenever Burnley and Luton play, that's when we'll actually see some points from both of those teams. Everton ended up selling even more players without bringing anybody in, so they may also be going down. I think Sheffield getting Cameron Archer from Villa will help them score some goals. I wanted to see him at the team, but also like $20 million of free money. So I think he will keep them above it. So for the three going down, like I said, Everton, Luton, and Burnley, I expect one of them to get a point when they play each other. So.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean that game looks like an early huge matchup between Luton and Burnley over there. But Jake, who are you picking to go all the way down as our early knee-jerk reactions to the standings? Which I don't even know if they're knee-jerk when it comes to the bottom of the league, to be honest. But
I think we can call it knee jerk. If you look at last season, I thought Nottingham Forest were for sure going down. And Bournemouth as well. And, they both survived. So I think we can call it knee jerk. I think that's fair to say. I think Burnley were unlucky that their game got postponed with Luton because that was supposed to be match week 2. And I think that's somewhere they could have picked up possibly 3 points. And if they did, then they would be above Bournemouth and Sheffield and Everton. So I think that Burnley actually do survive. And I think someone like Sheffield or Wolves actually take their spot. Everton, I think they're down. I think Everton's going to be in my relegation, same as Luton. And if I had to pick between Wolves and Sheffield, I don't think Wolves can score enough goals. So I think it's going to be Wolves as that third spot.
yeah, that's a tough one. I think, I thought the same thing. It's funny you mentioned Nottingham Forest because when I was looking at it and I was like, yeah, I mean, this time last year, heck, I mean, I think it was like 8th, 9th week. It looked like Forest is done. Who else is going to go? But at the time, they had signed like 56 players or something like that. And it was a matter of like, is it going to gel? Are they going to be able to figure out? I just feel like Luton does not have that thing. I don't think Everton does. The only thing they got going for him is really Sean. Maybe if he. But the thing is, I always thought Sean Douche would be able to at least get him points by playing defense. 0-0, 1-1 and stuff. Well, not 1-1 because it's Everton, but let's go 0-0 and stuff and get some points. But they're leaking in goals at the same time, which is not a characteristic of this team, and they just don't have people. But it's freaking Everton. They will find a way, I think. So I think I have Luton, Burnley, and Wolves. But I think that third spot is going to be between Wolves and Everton. I think that Archer signing that Shay was mentioned is a huge factor, and I think that will help Sheffield get some additional points over there and get some more goals. Alan, who do you have going all the way down?
I think that as long as Company is the manager over at Burnley, I don't think Burnley can go down. But I can see Luton going down. I can see Everton going down. And for me, it's a toss-up between Sheffield and Wolves. I think Bournemouth can stay up. But as far as Wolves and Sheffield, it's one or the other. And I would have to say Sheffield. Yeah, or Sheffield, whatever.
I think Bournemouth had a tough schedule as well. So I don't know. I think it's Yeah, that's why I think what somehow makes it a knee-jerk reaction. I think because some of these teams had tougher matchups, but like Everton really has played for the most part pretty like easier teams that they should get points out of and stuff, and they have not. Heck, I mean they didn't even score a goal until this, but Pickford has a goal, so that's a bonus. So we can go with that. But so transfer season is over. I don't know what do we have, another 12, 16 hours before the Arabs call the day as well, right? Tomorrow is the last day for them, and they're way ahead of us an hour. So Spurs made some moves. Liverpool made some last-minute moves. Villa a little bit. So Villa, let's start with you, Shay. Give me a grade of how you grade Villa in the offseason. Out of 10, I was told this is a
out of
European
10.
Turkish grading system.
Gotcha.
So we're not doing ABC, which is American apparently. So it's the Turkish bias on the show. We're doing it out of 10.
Honestly, I'd rate it a 9. Getting Musa Diaby and Pau Torres, it's two big players that I would never imagined signing in real life. Video games all day, you can make those transfers. But the fact that Emery has that pool to bring in that kind of talent was awesome to see. Now we just got to get them to gel. And like I said, I think Musa Diaby is going to be probably one of the purchases of the season, just because the guy is a very, very talented winger. So I'm going 9 out of 10.
Okay, damn. That's a happy man right there.
I'm happy.
Alan, Lego Man was buying sets all over the place, spending a lot of money. What do you give him?
I give Arsenal a 9 out of 10 as well.
I mean, you're pretty generous. Okay.
Yeah. I think. I mean, you can't predict what's going to happen to Timber in the first game of the season, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but
that's
he's a really good signing. He's a really good player. One can only hope that he comes back with the same energy that he did 7 months from now. I think getting Raya to compete with Ramsdale is only going to increase the level of play for both players, and we're going to start seeing Raya soon in the Champions League. Kai Havertz is the only question mark, and why I don't give this a 10 out of 10. But I do believe that there is a baller there. There is someone that can definitely play. He gets in the positions, he gets in the spots, he finds space in the box, and I think he can score. As soon as he does start scoring,
that's what Chelsea thought. Yeah,
that's what Chelsea thought too. But Chelsea also played him as a false 9. And
that's what I was going to say, because I know, as like Liverpool fans, for example. I mean, I don't know how it is like with you guys, Jake and Shay. I mean, we from outside, I know we chat and laugh about it all the time. About I feel Havertz is he's a good player, but I think that price is way overpriced for him. As an Arsenal, do Arsenal fans look at that and say, we paid this for this guy? Or is it more like fingers crossed?
No, I'm in the minority in thinking that, if you're going to pay for someone that you want from a rival, especially a London rival, that you're going to pay a lot more money than you normally would have to. But I think Arteta just, has it in his mind that he can make him into a really good player. As far as the rest of the fan base is concerned, I'm wrong. He's wrong. Everyone that decided to have Havertz at the Emirates is wrong. But we'll see what happens. I think he can turn it around. And as far as our last signing, obviously a gem of a player, Declan Rice. I mean, 105 million pounds is crazy, but I mean that's today's market. So.
Well, that's Chelsea's markets, yeah. Jake, what you guys made some last minute moves as well. What are you giving your team?
Yeah, I'll give them a 7.5 out of 10. I think going into the window, we were looking for some depth in the winger position, a creative midfielder, and then center back depth. And then replacing anyone that left that was part of the first team. And we got the winger depth. We got Solomon and Brennan Johnson for, as I like to say, a combined 47.5 million pounds because Solomon was free. So I think that was good business. James Maddison had a strong early case for being the signing of the off season. And then Van de Ven just looks absolutely stellar in that center back pairing with Romero. So no problem with those signings. It was then Harry Kane leaving, getting that huge fee, and then not having pretty much any center back depth behind our front two, especially now with Sanchez going to Turkey. So I think they needed to bring in another maybe main man, now that we see that Richarlison isn't probably going to cut it. And definitely one more center back. The center back, I think, would have been was crucial, because if we have an injury and a suspension to our two center backs, you have Eric Dyer and Ben Davies as our center back pairing. So I think
still better than Maguire and Evans.
Yeah, they're not that bad.
Not by
They're pretty bad, but they're not that bad.
So I think, if everyone stays healthy, then it's a 9 out of 10 transfer window, but you can't predict that. So I think you had to prepare for some possible injuries, and I think we were off the mark a little bit, but very, very content with the Madison and Van de Ven signings in particular.
Yeah, I give Liverpool, I gave him a 8 out of 7.5, kind of rounded it off. And I think that's because of, again, like what you're saying, if all things go well, I think it's fine. But center back is a concern as well, because the reliability of Matip and now Konate too, despite his age, he's had a lot of history with injuries. I do worry about that. That would have made it a 9. I think finishing the business earlier would have made it a 10, especially for defensive midfield. I know Henderson and Fabinho were not scheduled, I guess, if you will, but it still took a long time before that got replaced. I feel like those moves came a bit late. So, and I just hope, I keep saying it, but I just hope we don't regret those 2 points lost against Chelsea, because it was a good time to play them. First of all, I still think, well, I mean, for their sake, I guess that Pochettino will figure some stuff out, and they will be a better team for other teams to face. But yeah, that was probably more of a lost 2 points. I know the gameplay didn't reflect that, but I think on paper it was a lost 2 points. So 7.5 to 8. But at least overall, seems like everybody's pretty darn happy. So I don't want to hear any complaining over here mid-season, people, because everybody gave some really good grades over here. I'm going to clip this and save this. But so shock move over here. Greenwood's going to Getafe. I think we talked about it over here. Even Turkish teams didn't want this guy. Jake, what the hell are the Spanish people thinking?
I'm not sure. I made the point that he probably wouldn't go anywhere other than maybe Saudi Arabia. But, that didn't happen. And to get signed by a first division Spanish team, that's kind of shocking. It seems, at least from what I've seen on social media, that the fans are actually behind the move, which, anything to, make your team better, I suppose, from their fans' point of view. But I don't know. I suppose he had to go somewhere at some point, and Getafe is, as good as place as ever. So,
yeah, I thought, like I say, I was considered maybe, especially after the window was closed here. Obviously, it would be hard for him to go to one of the top leagues, I thought. And I was thinking sometime this week, maybe a Turkish team will try to sneak him under. But, it's one thing to advertise it over there as he was innocent, nothing. He was never guilty or anything like that. But before he even lands and starts juggling the ball in front of a stadium, you would think the video and the audio and all that kind of stuff would make it there, especially in this day and age. Are you shocked to see that move, Shay? Because we talked about it, and I don't think any one of us were he'll probably end up in La Liga.
Yeah, like I said, the evidence is out there, but the court system decided not to go against it. I think with today's day and age in Twitter, it's all about interactions, and they have gotten millions of hits off of it. So they're literally making free money off of this, because they know everybody foams at the mouth at just any kind of negativity and anything that's going to get people clicking on it. And I saw a really good tweet again today, just scrolling before we got on here. Fabrizio has literally tweeted about him 4 times, and every single one of them has gotten over 2 to 3 million hits on it. He's probably raking in $200,000 off of these. So the club's looking at this like, hey, he's here. We know it's greasy as hell. We're going to make free money doing it, and people are going to constantly keep coming to our page. And I think that is why they did that and took that risk. But as we see in the whole Spanish FA right now is not having the best of time with the whole women's stuff going on. They just fired the coach for speaking out about it. They still want to hold on to the FA or the Football Association president. So it's a mess in Spain right now. So, it kind of makes sense why he would go there. I mean, Real Madrid and Barcelona aren't the best of teams either. They have their own issues. So the whole league is a little greasy.
We were talking about that this morning, actually. Like maybe they thought, hey, while all this mess is going on with the Federation, we can sneak him in from the back door. Alan says, can you imagine wearing a jersey with Greenwood on? You know, it's so funny you say that because I actually had this image to show when we were going to show up Greenwood. There's a dude in the back who wants that jersey. So there is at least one person over there who is willing to live dangerously and get close to Mason Greenwood to get a jersey over there. Alan, what is your take on it? Would you put a hold us sign that's asking for Greenwood's jersey?
Fuck no. Sorry, that's swearing. No, this is disgusting and despicable. But Getafe, the Spanish FA, Fabrizio Romano, Mason Greenwood himself, all this is just bad. It's just bad optics, but nobody cares because it gets hits on Twitter.
Like I said, they're making too much money. They're making free money off of it. It's ridiculous. But
yeah,
that's where we are now.
like I said earlier, does he deserve a second chance? Maybe. Like you earn those chances by working hard at showing what has changed within you. And right now he has been given a contract at a loan. That's the other thing too, is that his contract at United wasn't actually disintegrated as it should have been. He was loaned to Getafe, so shame on United as well.
Didn't they say they're mutually parting ways?
I don't know.
I thought they said that, but then apparently, like even how Alan said, like they're covering it to where I think only Getafe only paying like $70,000 out of it. I don't know how much he's getting paid.
Yeah, because I heard like United is paying 75% of the wage.
Yeah, something like that. And I don't know if we discussed it on here someday when I just talked about it. Like they're literally going to bring. I guarantee they'll bring him back sometime in January because watch him like score a couple goals. And they're like, oh, it's been a couple months, you know, United's doing whatever, and then they'll bring him back. And we have to see him in the Premier League. So I'm hoping when he does come back, ACL tear would be perfect. Somebody just take his ass out.
Agree.
We need a what was United's old player? Little Roy or Vinny Jones action to go on. I'll be all right.
Do you guys think? See, that's like a good point that you brought. I mean, Alan, for example, do you think players, when they see if Greenwood, and I agree with Shay, I think this is just basically setting the table. They're like, oh shit, we forgot to shed that contract, bummer, and then they just loan them so he eventually can come back. I guess depends on what he does. If he's having a hat trick a week, which I don't know if you can in Getafe, but that's a different story. But if they do bring him back, Alan, do you think players on the pitch are, I don't know, well, Maguire probably can't keep up with them, but let's say any defender, do they say, you know what, I'm going to get a piece of this asshole?
I don't think so. I don't think players, honestly, like, I think I was let down by a lot of players when there was another controversial player that had Mendy? A case. Mendy had a case on him, and everyone, once everything was dropped, everyone was just like, oh, I stand with Mendy and all this stuff. So these players are just going to play the game. They're not going to go out and outright hurt Greenwood if he comes back. And the same if the players in La Liga. And of course, my camera goes out, but I'll just keep on going. But yeah, the same with the players of the Liga. They're not gonna go after him like that. They're just gonna let him play. It's shameful that he's been given an opportunity that is honestly a privilege. It is a privilege to play at the highest ends of this sport, and for him to be able to just go on without like nothing happened and be cheered on and paraded around is just despicable and disgusting to me. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's the good thing is when you guys cameras freeze, at least you guys look like you're really deep in thought. Mine freezes. I'm making like a weird face or something like that. So, Jake, do you think players say, let me get a piece of this guy? Or like Alan says, they're kind of like, man, shit happens to everybody. People are after us. He's part of the union.
I mean, they're definitely not gonna pull any tackles. They'll go into them with the ferocity that they would for any other one.
No extra ferocity though?
I mean, they'll never admit to it, obviously, but I think, coincidentally, we might see some harsher tackles. But no, I know that I think there is a January break clause in that loan, which is ridiculous. It's like Well, we think it's best for him to continue his career outside of United, and then they have a loan with a clause to bring him back in January if they want, which is like going against their,
like I said, it's just
their first
let the
statement.
fire break down.
Yeah. So it's I mean, I never want any player to get injured, but I would not shed a tear if he did have a harsh tackle on him in La Liga or potentially the Premier League if he were somehow brought back from his loan early. So
I have a long list of players where I would not mind an injury personally, but I'm that kind of guy, like Neymar, Richarlison. Sorry, but that is I can make you a solid list. I'll hook you up with a solid list to pray along with me. Shay, what do you think?
Well, I mean, like I said, we discussed it, and I look at their Twitter feed right now. Like, one post, 8 million hits or views. There's another one that had 9 million, one that 10.4. So, like, they're literally making, like I said, it's gross. They knew what they were doing.
Gross, right?
they literally knew what they were doing. I think they're like, we're a bottom tier La Liga team. Like, I don't even know where they finished last year, to be honest with you. They probably got promoted. They're like, you know what? And how they say in business, no publicity is bad publicity, even though we know it is as humans, and just common sense has kind of gone out the door. But for them to make that much money to do literally nothing is, it is what it is. So
yeah, I think
to hell with them
was the perfect word to explain.
Yeah, it's gross. So like I said, I don't. There's like I'm with you. Like, I know Jake doesn't like to see players get hurt, but there's some players that deserve to get their ass beat every now and then.
Oh wait, well, give me a top three then. Give me a top three.
Top three players.
That you want an injury upon them.
Who? For the longest
Jake,
time.
you have to have a top three, dude. Don't tell me you don't have it. Come on.
I wouldn't wish that upon anyone.
This doesn't go out on the internet. Just tell us, Shay, who do you have? You have a top three.
I have a top three. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. I know it was a couple years ago. Probably Fernandinho, or for City, just because he was always a dirty player.
You
do
not like defensive midfielders, do you?
I love defensive midfielders. I just like the ones that don't get away, they don't get away with it all the time. Like, they're clear and obvious. Hey man, quit doing this kind of crap. He was always bad. Honestly, for me, Ben Mee, I've always hated him. I think he is a very dirty center back. So, like, if he does, that's the one person I kind of want to hurt Greenwood. But you didn't hear that from me. But
see, Jake is over there. Maybe like he's liking some of these suggestions. I can tell.
No. So
he's like,
no, never.
A personal one. So we had that striker Wesley a couple years ago. The kid from Brazil, and he was just finally coming into his form. And Ben Mee did one of the dirtiest challenges I've ever seen. Basically ruined that guy's career because he fully took his knee out, no contact with the ball or anything, and then he had the nerve to say, "Yeah, I was clean." I was like, "Dude, we have it on camera," but he's a dirty bastard of a player, so. It'd be 1, 2, and 3 for me,
go really long. Yeah. Looks like with Shay.
To hell with Ben Mee. Sorry, to hell with Ben Mee, man. That's my guy.
Okay, international break is upon us. Jake, aside from making a list of people you want injured, how do you spend the international break? Are you really into it? Is it a time away from soccer?
It's kind of like when bears hibernate in the winter. I just sleep through the entire week and then hope, the next time I wake up, there's actually Premier League games again. What else do we do? I'm so confused. But no, I like the break. It feels early though. Been getting back into the feel of it of, watching games every morning on the weekends. It's been awesome. So to have it this early, I think is a bummer. So I'll be itching to have it back the following week.
I think NFL is here to pick up the slack this Sunday, but I don't know what the hell I'm going to do Saturday. Shay, what do you do? Obviously, you already have the long list of people you want hurt. That frees up a lot of time for you.
Well, so the thing is, growing up an England fan, I'm so sick of Gareth Southgate, and his team selection to me was one of the worst I've ever seen. Like, he's just rewarding mediocrity. It still blows on. There's a lot of English talent out there that deserves to get pulled up. I know we're not playing the two biggest teams, but whatever. But for me, honestly, college football's back. Watching Ole Miss play NFL, so that'll keep me preoccupied until the Premier League comes back on.
Alan,
yes.
Okay, like I was gonna pass on this, but the Northside Gunner really wants to know your top 3 players you wish to get injured. It's a hateful episode this week.
It is a very. I honestly, I was thinking about this and I couldn't think of anyone, to be honest with you.
Okay, Jake.
Sorry.
Hey,
no, I was just too
I
busy.
can.
Hold on. Jake's got one.
Let's hear it, Jake. I want to hear it.
Harry
I'm
Kane,
not
son.
gonna say I won't say wish injury upon, but the ones I don't like the most. We'll go there.
I agree with Jake.
I'll go Bruno, number 1.
Ooh,
Oh, yeah.
good one.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll go a little throwback because he's not in the Premier League anymore, but Xhaka in his prime. I did not like him, obviously, as a Spurs fan. So that was one.
boy.
And then kind of a random one, just someone I don't like for really no reason, is John Egan on Sheffield. I just don't like how he gives me bad vibes. So that's my number 3.
That's fine. All right, Alan, who do you have?
Fuck. I don't like Son. Everyone, I know Arsenal fans that actually love him, and I don't. I think he cries too much. I'm sorry, Jake. I also didn't like Kane at all when he was there. And yeah, Bruno.
Are these like hatred from people who hurt you though, or like you even when they're playing against him, you're like, I just can't stand this dude.
Honestly, with Son, it's just like his whininess sometimes, and just like I don't know.
Rich from a guy who has Gabriel Jesus on his team. I'm just it's built into his face, bro. Come on.
Kane just scores too much against Arsenal. I don't like that.
So you must
I'm glad he's gone. I'm glad that he's Shaka's probably in the Bundesliga too. Or
yeah,
more,
Shaka was one of those.
more,
it goes back to the dirty player thing that you were talking about. I just didn't like. And it was shocking to me, kind of like Bruno, how somebody like that can be a captain that is so petulant by design as part of their game, can actually be a captain to calm everybody else down is odd. But that's a whole episode for another day. Alan, how are we spending the international break?
I'm gonna sit back, watch some movies. Honestly, I try to chill out from as much soccer content as possible. I might watch I think the Fire play at home today, or this weekend, so I might go to that. I am a season ticket holder. But other than that, I probably won't watch much soccer or anything content. I'll probably watch a couple movies, a documentary. I don't know if you heard of this one. It's called 89. It's about this wonderful team that worked really hard. They were in and out of the top of the league table in 1989 and ended up like taking it in the very last game against the very strong European champions that were part of this really bad thing that happened and got banned from Europe and got the entire league banned. Oh wait, that was Arsenal in 89. So that's a really good documentary.
I was like, where is this going,
man?
Who beat Liverpool for the top spot in the final game.
Well, yeah, dig through the archives. I figured you would buy a Lego set or whatever. On the week off and do that. Ellen says, "How is my little pinky?" My little. Don't even ask. Don't even ask. It's I'm the only old fart who probably gets like a trigger finger, but I'm like scaling back from my Call of Duty shifts. So it is what it is. But yeah, international break. I mean, I'll be watching Turkey, obviously, but aside from that, yeah, it is kind of good to slightly get away from things and then rebuild. We'll see what happens. Obviously, there's a lot of talk with Mo and stuff like that, but we'll see what happens with that. And then we should be back next week. We'll take a look at the schedule, see what happens, see which other United players in trouble. I'm sure that'll be like another episode by itself. And we'll be back. Wishing everybody a great week. Thanks for joining us, watching us. Give us a like, share, all that stuff. Press all those buttons underneath the window. And we'll see you guys next week.